to the HPTV podcast, Deathly Hallows Part 1 edition. We are on the penultimate of our rewatch of the Harry Potter canon book adaptation series. Just in case we do other stuff, No new news on the TV show this week, but I did have something that made me quite excited. Do you guys watch The Last of Us? Did you watch season 1? Planning on watching more?
Season 1. I haven't watched more yet.
So we watched season 2 episode 1 yesterday, and then today the new one came out. This is Hannah's last day of Easter break, and we're like, you know what, let's do it. And so it balances a lot of things going on at once, and it really kickstarts this season and lets you know what it's really going to be about. But it's directed by Mark Mylod, who I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but I looked deeper because we had said, oh, he's got like a great pedigree, but I was looking at some of the other like big time episodes that he's directed, because he's got like a weird filmography. Like, of course, he did like some indie stuff. Like, he's just picking up a lot of random TV episodes, and he did like the Ollie G Show and Shameless and United States of Terror, like Entourage, Once Upon a Time, which I have so many thoughts on that television series and what went wrong. But anyway, and then all of a sudden, like, Game of Thrones is really where he jumps into the spotlight, like, because between then he does some more network stuff. But Game of Thrones, he did 6 episodes, but they're good episodes, and you can see they get later and later in the season, which is how you know they matter more and more. Like in season 5, he did episodes 3 and 4, which are where they introduced the High Sparrow and the Sons of the Harpy. And then season 6, he did the Broken Man and No One. And then in season 7, I know season 7 is not that well received, but he did 2 of the better episodes in that one, Stormborn and the Queen's Justice. But then more critically, he does a ton of Succession, which is where, and he did my favorite episode, which is called Connor's Wedding, but it's actually about the death of, big spoilers for Succession, but it's your fault, the death of the father. Anyway, it's really incredibly done, very cleverly made. And then The Last of Us was kind of the last thing. He did 3 episodes in this season that's about to air, and after that, like, his focus, if he stays on, obviously is going to be on Harry Potter for quite a while. So, like, just thinking he was doing literally some of the best television we've had in the last 5 to 10 years. It's very exciting that he's going to be helming this. It instilled with more confidence that, like, if Francesca is like the showrunner and she's been doing a lot of the hiring and selecting, that you also have someone on board who's kind of like been with the series like Succession over years and told great stories within genre like Game of Thrones and The Last of Us Part 2. So that's my opening ramble, that my confidence is up.
Well, and I've seen 2 episodes of Succession, and that's one, and the finale's the other, because my husband watched it.
Huh?
I do not like mean rich people. It makes me very uncomfortable about the whole world. But, and the good thing about that too is that Francesca also worked on Succession, and they've worked together before, and I think that sounds like, since they're working together again, that they have a good relationship, which also gives me hope that there's not going to be at least discord between them.
Yeah, there's nothing like some behind the scenes drama to tank a show and really keep it in production hell. So if they can avoid that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it seems because they've worked together before and maybe they handle different elements of it. I think that was interesting because there was that Mr. and Mrs. Smith show on Amazon, and they brought in Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Donald Glover, and it ended up just sticking with Donald Glover. And they never said creative differences, but I was like, you have 2 really specific creative minds that like to do things their way. And I was like, did you just say we're going to pick the 2 coolest names right now, or did they discuss how they were going to maybe handle the different elements of production separately or come together? And it turned out to be a good show, and Donald's doing his own thing. Like, I don't think there was bad blood, but it's interesting when you bring 2 creative minds in to like hone in on one thing that it can go wrong. I like that series. I didn't love it like a lot of people did, but I like that the next season's going to be it's anthology, so it might be loosely connected, but I think it's going to be a new set of people. So I like that idea as well. Anyway, Steven, happy birthday. I think it's worth saying. It was your birthday this week. What did you do? Did you do anything special?
Last week, no, I took the day off and I slept in, and we went to dinner. We went to a Brazilian barbecue place for dinner, which was really good. So.
You went to lunch? Where'd you go to lunch?
Oh, we went to like a little place nearby here for lunch. It was good, but nothing too special. Just getting out and about. So yeah.
I feel like you live in a subdivision and there's a Walmart right there, but otherwise you're actually not close to anything.
texted Mitchell and I was trying to send you something for your birthday. Like I was trying to send you like specialty dessert, like something a little nicer. And I was like, Stephen doesn't live around anything. Although there's a Walmart right there. Like
I did.
it would have been like 2 hours. And I was like, okay, well, you're getting Dunkin' Donuts, I guess.
Hey, we enjoyed it.
Apparently was a thing.
If he lived by like one of those specialty dessert or cake shops or like giant cookie shops, he'd probably have one every other week. Maybe it's good.
Well, there are
It's the problem with
places,
living
but
in
like
London, I can have anything.
we don't have as many chains here, like because we're outside of Orlando. Orlando itself has like every chain in the world, it seems like. But like down our way, we don't really. There's some really good mom and pop shops though. That I don't know if they do DoorDash stuff though, but
That's good.
There's some
Support
There was
local
some, but
business.
when the picture looks off, I don't.
I don't.
Can
Can I actually tell the story about the DoorDash guy?
Yes, please.
So I get a text from Jamie while we're at lunch. That not even from Jamie, I think, but just from DoorDash saying that like they were delivering something. And at first I was like kind of worried because we're at lunch, and I was like, because some DoorDashers are weird. Like I've done DoorDash, and like they won't leave stuff unless it specifically says to and everything. And so I was like, oh man, we gotta like hurry home. But then it kept getting delayed. Like the ETA kept getting pushed back. And I was like, what's going
And it
on?
wasn't supposed to come until I think 1:30 or 3, whatever. I talked to your
can
wife, so
pre-book
I had
it,
been
yeah.
in communication with her that what time you guys should be home. But the guy was all early. Like I got a message early that like your order was like ready. And I'm like,
I don't know.
"Wait,
Yeah, he picked it up early.
I set a time."
And when I got an initial ETA, and then I was like, we got home like in plenty of time in the end. But then, like we were just gonna sit in the driveway because we had to leave to go get the kids from school after that. This guy pulls up, and like it was an older guy. He had a real hard time just getting out of his car, and I was like, okay, so I'm gonna walk over there and get it from him. So I go over there. And by this time he had like stood up out of his car and had the donuts, but his leg was all bloody. So he was telling me his English wasn't the best, but like his previous, drop, something had happened and he had fallen and banged himself up, and his leg was all bloody, and like, should we go inside and like bandage you up? He's like, no, I'm okay. And I was like, it looks pretty bad. Like we should go. He kept apologizing because, my donuts were late. And I was like, it's just some Dunkin' Donuts, dude. Like I appreciate it, but like go to a hospital. Like you're gonna be. So
as long as there's no blood on the donuts,
I mean, the donuts
It's
were
all
good. They were pristine. They were tasty
That
as
guy
always.
sacrificed his leg for years.
So I don't know what kind of tip
belly.
you put,
I
Jamie,
didn't
but if you
know.
can go back and add more tip, you might do that. He earned
I'll
it
go
for
add
sure.
more tip. I did tip, but all I got a message from you saying, I'll have to tell you the story about the delivery driver later. And I was like, oh, great. Do I tip? Do I give a good review? And you're like, yes, give a good review. I was like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what was going on? We were running around. I think we were trying to get the kids settled with mom and dad. So, because just me and my wife went out to dinner, and so we didn't So I bet we were trying to do all that when you were texting me. But but it was memorable story. I was gonna say funny. It wasn't really funny.
Sorry. Happy birthday.
I know, right?
I tried to do something simple.
No, it was great. Kids loved it. Thank you, Mitchell. You didn't do anything.
is the front lines of the American dream.
I mean,
I know what Jamie told me she was doing that because she's like, "There's nothing around. Like, is that what it?" And I was like, "You're a better person than me for looking."
Mitchell didn't even think about it. Normally, when I message Mitchell something like that, he'll be like, "Just put my name on it too."
Well, I just felt like with a DoorDash, and you'd said he had done something for Isaac, so I was like, this feels like. Hey.
Yeah, I did. I just was reaching out to you, be like, should I send him Dunkin' Donuts, or is that just dumb? And you're like, no, donuts are good.
What everybody I've been to Dunkin' like twice in my life, but I'm like, they've got great ads, so I assume everybody loves Dunkin'.
There's a lot more
That's what they
Dunkin'
say in the
here
Northeast.
in the South. Yeah, well, I mean in the East in general, but there's Dunkins everywhere here. They're pretty solid.
Well, yeah, it's a big Boston thing,
a
like a big New England thing, Jersey and the stuff. They love their Dunkin', and I like the rebrand to just Dunkin' because they're more than just donuts.
So much more.
We are brought to you. This whole thing has been an ad. We're brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. What can I say?
Dunkin', we're open. We're open to
or we're open to your ads. We have only good things to say about you. What's that bagel place? Does Dunkin' do bagel sandwiches, or am I making that up?
Yeah,
they used to. I don't know if they still do.
I think in an airport one time I got it, and it was delicious. And if not, it was Einstein's Bagels, which also you can call us. That's fine.
I used to work for Einstein, so if Einstein's would like to. I worked there very early in the morning.
Anyway, this is making me hungry.
Still intoxicated.
It's funny because I was about to say, Stephen, you took us to like Main Street in your town once, and there were a bunch of mom and pop shops. Whereas here in England, they would all do the 2 or 3 of the delivery apps for sure. They like kind of have to here, but they're like, it wouldn't surprise me if they don't. And then I was going to say support independent business, but also I'm probably going to have McDonald's for dinner. That being said,
Do both. You can support both.
Transition.
Alternate.
perfect transition into mass capitalist product called Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, which we'll first start with our rankings. And I'll tell you, this ranks very high as maybe the best film and maybe the best adaptation. But favorite-wise, I was like, do I actually get joy and riveting fun out of this as much? It's probably 2 or 3 in my favorite, my most enjoyable ranking. But it's I think, clearly has to be the best adaptation, and it's likely not as clear, but likely the best actual film overall. Let's let Steven go because I feel like Jamie's got something to say. Steven, where's this rank for you?
I have a lot of passion about this movie.
Right there with you, though. No, I think this one hit the nail on the head. Particularly after seeing all the movies, right, is that the shift in tone. They managed to make this one tonally very different from part 2, and I mean obviously from the others as well. And it's really fitting when you consider you're taking these 3 characters out of the school where we normally are spending time with them, and in all these different environments, going on kind of a different kind of adventure. But they really nail the tone. There's a couple places where it feels rushed, but I do think that of the movies, it's probably the best executed. And then, just the fact that they had more time, right? Because they split it into 2 films. They really had the opportunity, I think, to kind of spend time on certain things that made it a little more worthwhile. So yeah, this is number 1 for me.
Is it your favorite one to watch?
It is. I think
or is it just the best?
It's one of those where it depends on the mood I'm in, right? If I want to watch something a little more with a little more action or something, I might watch 4 or 5, I feel like. But as far as overall movie, I think this one does still win out.
I wonder if the filmmakers were excited to get outside of the castle. Like you said, they get to do bits, and obviously in the show they'll get to focus on the bits outside the castle more. But this one, I think it says a lot that they thrived. I know this is a very different thing, but I listened to Pod Meets World because I love Boy Meets World, and they were talking about how they were such a set. They were at the same studio doing the same sets every day, and when they did their Disney World episode, which every ABC 90s sitcom had to do a Disney World episode, they're like, you could tell that our production was not ready for it. They were not used to it. It was a completely different type. Now, I know with Harry Potter, they were on the same, for the most part, sets, areas and stuff, but I do think it must have been a very different dynamic to light and shoot when you're constantly outdoors, you're constantly in these new environments. So it's actually great that the same crew is doing something just as good in a completely different environment. All right, Jamie, go ahead, tell us why it's the GOAT.
Well, I was born, just kidding, this is my number 1 movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm not saying it's one of the best movies ever made. Whenever you say that, like, oh, this is my favorite movie, people are like, what is wrong with you? But for me, it's because it's melding my love of Harry Potter and a really good movie and a really good adaptation. I just remember when this was released, I didn't have high expectations for it. We were all at a point, these were different than the books. It is what it is, but of course I went to go see it. I feel like I saw this with one of you at one point. I saw this the most in theaters I had ever seen a Harry Potter movie in theaters. I can't remember. It's 2010, so it's probably Mitchell, because Mitchell was around.
I think that's right, because I think Steven and I saw part 2 together in Utah, actually.
But I remember seeing this and just being blown away. There's some disappointing things. There always will be from the book to the movie, but overall it felt like the book to me, my perception of the book, my relationship with the book. And I remember going and telling my friend Jeff, who was also a book lover, who was meh on the movies at this point. My friend Jeff, he's funny. He stopped watching Game of Thrones at season 5 because he's like, it was great. I'm not going to move on because they're only going to ruin it. Jeff was right. So I went.
Season 6 is so good.
It is. It has one of the best episodes of television of all time. But we went to see it, and the movie ended. He's like, it felt like the book. You almost forget about some of the differences because they navigate it so well. It's the best acting by the trio. I think they all do really well. It's the best pacing, the best storytelling, the best cinematography. I agree. I think they were excited to get out of the castle. And just have more room to play around. And I'm guessing they didn't have to do as much, spending so much time handling. I mean, obviously there's some big extra scenes in this with lots of extras and stuff like that. But there was a lot of these pare down scenes where you get to breathe. And I sent you guys today the Wikipedia on this movie because this and part 2 were made pretty much at the same time. And I was actually surprised that David Heyman pushed back on this being 2 movies. According to Wikipedia, I don't know how true that is. I do have this film book I should look at again. It's been a long time. Maybe it talks about it there. but like the runtime would have been way too long as one movie. And so I'm like, I am so glad they did this as 2 movies because this resulted in being the best movie.
Well,
Anyway.
it made sense because we know now, as we talk about the TV series, they had enough story for so many of these to be more hours.
Yes.
And I think to really close it in and do it right, to only do it for the final one was great. And now, of course, every series after this decided to split their last one into 2.
Some
which
unnecessary.
burnt some of them. It's looking at you, Divergent. Still don't know how that one ends now.
I never saw it.
But yeah, this movie, directed by David Yates and written by Steve Kloves again, it grossed $960 million, which was the 3rd biggest of the year and the 3rd biggest of the series. What's interesting about that to me is now people are like, if a Marvel movie doesn't make $1 billion, well, there's some like Shang-Chi was a new IP, so like, oh, that one should be 700 to 800. But they're like, if a Marvel movie doesn't, or a big tentpole movie doesn't make $1 billion, it's a failure. And it's interesting that this movie, which was at one time the 10th highest grossing movie of all time, didn't make $1 billion, and we weren't losing our minds. Anyway, I want you guys to guess what you think the 2 movies in 2010 that outgrossed us are.
Oh my gosh.
Or did you look it up, Jay?
I did not look it up. I don't remember what movies came out in 2010. What was I doing
the same
in
thing to
2010?
remember what even came out.
I was in film school.
I would have gotten one of these. I would not have gotten the other.
I'm trying to think. Inglourious Bastards didn't come out in 2010, right? That was like 2008.
Yeah, that was 8 or 9.
That's what you think.
Well, I don't want to waste time on silence, but number one was Toy Story 3.
Oh, yes. I had to write a whole essay.
Which is a good one. Number 2 kind of annoys me because it's Alice in Wonderland, which I did not love. Well. Interesting for Harry Potter to have built up, and then like this classic piece of IP done in a very quirky, specific way, surpassed it by quite a bit. It made 40 million more than that, actually.
But that also came out in 3D, so I wonder if the ticket prices are higher. I don't know how that works.
Rounding out the top 6 were Inception, Shrek Ever After, Twilight. Oh, let's keep going. Iron Man, Tangled, Despicable Me, and then 10 was How to Train Your Dragon. That's a strong top 10, actually.
That is.
And a lot of kids movies. Like, I don't think we see that many kids movies in the top 10 anymore.
That's pretty.
Well, it's because there was a lot made.
Was that the first Alice in Wonderland?
This will piss you off,
live action?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know Rotten Tomatoes doesn't matter, but it does technically calculate a grouping of reviews, and this got 77, whereas part 2 got like 94. And that's where you find the false. There's no way that makes any sense. I
don't get it. I don't understand. The way I try to navigate this, if you haven't read the book, there's probably this movie's probably kind of confusing in some ways, even though there is more time to explain things. So much happens internally for Harry that I get that that's hard to push out. And then obviously part 2 has like big battles and fights, and that's what people want to see. But to me, it's weird that like critics don't appreciate like the subtlety of this movie and the like character development and the interpersonal relationships. Yeah, I find it very interesting. I think on most lists, part 2 is number 1. People like put it as number 1 as like the best Harry Potter movie, and I don't get it, but that's
you gotta be ready for part 2. You're gonna have to come with your full 8 movie rankings. And you can have some caveats for like, I know this one's better, but I enjoy this one more. That's fine, but it's going to be impossible. Let's not do it. I changed my mind. I'll edit that out.
I've got mine already. But what I was going to say, though...
I've been thinking.
Is that most of my things that we'll go through, right, that were like shortcomings or on, my bad list, were really because of other movies. Like we talked about this a little bit the last couple, I think, where like things got left out. Yes. And so they're having to cram stuff in order for it to make sense. And because they're very clearly setting up part 2, I feel like there is more cramming of information and things here and like single lines and like a character appearing out of nowhere stuff. And so it does kind of throw off if you haven't read the books and you don't already know about like Bill and Mundungus and like, wait a second, the chick from book 4 is back and she's marrying Ron's brother. Like, where did that like, you didn't read the books. You didn't like that connection is not there like at all. And so,
where's Charlie?
And the same thing with Dobby. Like you saw Dobby in 2, and Harry in theory hasn't seen him in 5 years. So like, why is he? I mean, it's great that he came and saved him, but like, why is he that sad that he died? Like, there's just so many of those kinds of things that's where I feel like that's where everything gets messed up. Is it's not the fault of this film itself. They're trying to cover a lot of missing things.
I agree, but like what I wrote down was that this movie honored the book itself very well. So what's in the book, I feel like, is translated so well. But then, yeah, you're like, what is going on? Or who is this person? Because they failed in the other places to even mention Bill. I think Charlie's only mentioned in like one. And so it's like, where'd this brother come from? Why haven't you talked about your brother for 7
It
years?
almost would have been easier on moviegoers if they had done the classic thing where they merge Bill and Charlie into one character and been like, hey, the guy they
Yeah.
referenced before, this
Just
is
call him
him now,
Charlie.
But I also would have been pissed if they did that.
And
so they knew that.
when you hear
Yeah.
that now, it would have made sense that like if he was a young dragon keeper in 4 and met Fleur, although Bill does meet Fleur, but coming for the last task, doesn't he? But if he would have been there and you would have just merged them into one, like, because they never even mentioned who Bill really is. He just, that older brother that was graduated before the show started was here.
Exactly.
I did want to ask, do they set up the shard of mirror?
No, they never set that up either.
Or does Harry just pull that out of his sock randomly? I don't remember that getting set up in the films, and we just watched them, but maybe I'm crazy.
I can't remember either, but I have been reading the books at the same time, so I'm kind of...
Yeah, it's one, like, from the books, it gets dropped in, he gets it in the 5th book, right? No, it's the 6th book. And I don't think that happens in the movie at all. And then...
Gets it in the 5th book, and he doesn't use it.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't use it in the 5th, sorry.
And then it's his
but
fault.
the beginning of the 7th... At the very beginning of the 7th, then we kind of get a reminder of it being in his trunk, but none of that happens either. And so, yeah, he pulls out the shard
his
and
finger.
Also,
and he doesn't know how to heal it.
How do you keep it in your sock and not cut your ankle? Anyway, I digress. That's my howler, but let's move on to what is your guys' biggest gripe with this film?
I'll just run through mine. I have a few things. And again, these are all things that I understand why they're not in there, but I just missed, I guess, because I don't have a major, like, why the hell wasn't this here? That's all stuff from movies before that I can't control at this point. I'm sad that, like, Tonk's parents aren't shown, and that's not the stopping at the Tonk's house before going to the Burrow, just because I think it's so interesting with the mom's relationship. But again, the Harry and Jenny thing again, well, I mean, we've complained about this a million times, but it's kind of like, it's never like are they together? Did they break up? That's like never established. So then it's just like awkward.
Actually, a nice conversation in 6 and a thought moving into 7,
And it's just talking about Harry, beginning of Harry just having to give up like the idea of a normal life at that point and like dumping her because of that. But it does give us the George scene, which with the morning, which is like so perfect. I love it. The Luna bedroom scene is one of my favorite moments in all the books. And I'm so sad. Like, could you not just do a quick shot of him seeing Luna's room? It makes me cry. Oh, I also, at the end, I'll give you guys a list of every time I cried watching this movie because I was laughing at myself. Pettigrew's death, I think, would something they established in the movie was his silver hand. I think they should have paid that off. That's actually a big one. I'm like, that would have taken 1 second. And you don't even know that Pettigrew's dead in this one.
Yeah, he just like, why would he not be at the final battle?
He gets stunned and he never shows up again. They never explain that he died or if they, it's wild.
And then
blame Steve Close for that one.
One of my favorite, so I have 3 favorite chapters throughout the series: the cave, the wand maker, and then the forest again. I think are so well written and beautiful. And the wand maker, when Harry is digging Dobby's grave, and I don't know how they're going to translate this on the show or how they should have translated it in the movie, but it's such a pivotal moment of Harry going through like Hallows, horcruxes, him thinking about all the people who have died, him coming to the point of being like, okay, it doesn't matter that I didn't know Dumbledore. I have to like finish my mission kind of a thing. And I'm just kind of sad that got like pushed off, but that's what I have for.
I was thinking that too, though, because that's one I think they could just even have it because it's all in his head, right? Just having Ron there or having, Luna comes out and, sits there while he digs or something, like just having someone to like say those things out loud so we can hear it. Because it is, he travels a very long distance in that time, as he's digging that grave. But that's one thing that I put on my list, and sorry to cut you short, Jamie, but was the Deathly Hallows like backstory. And like we didn't really ever get a clear explanation of like the 3 and what they mean together and the Peverils, and so like you get like the animated story, which I think is cool. But I think there's just also, and then it ties into Dumbledore's backstory, right? Like the whole reason that they were chasing the Hallows is actually not that different from why Voldemort was making horcruxes, right? It was this kind of idea of living forever and defeating death and all of that. But which and then adds a lot of weight to Harry's conversation with Dumbledore later, right, about choosing Hallows over Horcruxes and why it's so different. But we don't really get a ton of explanation on either of those. And then just Dumbledore's backstory is the other really big one. Like you kind of see Ariana for a minute, but they don't really stop and explain like anything other than that's I think they say her name, but like we don't really get how their dad ended up in jail and how that had in Azkaban and how that had to do with Ariana her issue, and then how that led to a lot of other things.
True.
It's also intricate, and they just kind of glazed over so much of that, and that's a lot of the depth of Dumbledore that we don't quite ever get, I think, without reading the books.
We should have gotten the freaking Fantastic Beasts. Whatever.
Yes.
Well, the Fantastic Beasts separate, but no, Stephen, my big one was we didn't get enough Dumbledore here. I think even the conversation with Mariel,
yeah,
and Doge, like I think and it would have been tough to weave into a movie and not feel like it was a departure, and you couldn't quite do maybe a full flashback, but it just felt like Dumbledore's story and what Harry reads in that book, which is really interesting because I feel like we're always fed this thing that's like read a Skeeter, just rise lies, but then it kind of gives the impression later on that everything in that book is true. But I think we needed to. I thought the movie could actually, and the TV show maybe could improve on that, like giving us solidly what maybe she embellished and what was actually happening or what was important. But yeah, I feel like Dumbledore doesn't get weaved into this movie enough to maybe set the next one up a little bit better. And you're right, that actually ties in really well to the Hallows and the Horcruxes. Dumbledore was obviously chasing the Hallows as a young person to get himself as powerful as he could, but then when Voldemort was trying to go for immortality, he went Horcruxes, and they're kind of played against each other in this way that's interesting because they're both a gray area. And even in the book, I thought it kind of slightly been improved why this book is titled like the Deathly Hallows, and how that it actually does take Harry back to the beginning of his journey and connects it, and he's been chasing these Horcruxes. And I think that Harry ending this movie really torn between the two would set up nicely as we go into the downhill.
Well, and it's just it's one of those things that in the movies I think feels contrived when it's like, okay, Dumbledore is supposed to be the most powerful wizard in the world, right? And yet he's a headmaster at a school, and like it's kind of just like, yeah, it can feel contrived because like he needs to be there so that the kids have access to him so he can be part of the story with Harry. But no, like the Hallows are a really important part of that, right? Is like what happened with his sister, what happened with Grindelwald, all of that is like why he realized like, okay, I don't need to go pursue these things. I actually need to be, a person who teaches and stuff, And so he no longer sought after all that power because of those events. And so that's part of why, we just missed this huge chunk of who Dumbledore is. And it explains kind of why he is where he is and why he's decided so much more to be like selfless and focus on like watching Harry and developing Harry so that he can basically save the world, right? And have his Jesus moment in part
Harry.
2. Yeah, it's that. But
sacrifice.
Well, and I think the Hallows 2 is a great metaphor or a great example of the differences between Dumbledore and Voldemort and Harry and Voldemort, and that's what Harry comes to in that moment. That's not talked about or really talked about with the Hallows. Is like that's a quick way out, an easy like grab for power in a way. I mean, not easy. You still have to find them and all that stuff. But the fact that all Voldemort's at least looking for the Elder One at that time because he wants the power and he wants to be able to beat Harry, and Harry wants them as well because I think he is drawn a little bit by the power of them. And then him realizing like, okay, it's more important that like I give of myself to like save the greater good, even though that's a dead thing. Great. But to save everyone else instead of like me seeking out this power and, doing what I can for the people I love because he's experiencing loss. Voldemort's not outside of the Horcruxes.
It's funny that
which is himself.
I essentially thought J.K. Rowling invented the term for the greater good when it is like the theme or the question in so many things. And speaking of Last of Us spoilers for season 1, where like somebody should have sacrificed somebody else for the greater good. You guys have said you'd both seen it, so yeah, audience.
I know. I'm just saying you're just throwing out spoilers. I'm just kidding though.
Every left and right. Yeah, just to close the Dumbledore thing, I think there was such a chance over the 5 Fantastic Beasts film for it to transition from being Newt's story to Dumbledore's story, and they rushed it because the first one didn't do badly, but didn't grab people like they wanted, and then they got sexy Jude Law, and so the second one's the real mess. Like the third one actually kind of brings it together okay.
Is so bad.
And if they could have just eased if he would have been really eased into the series, and then his backstory could fill itself in and flush out Grindelwald. I was thinking like seeing little old man Grindelwald in this, and that being, either Johnny Depp or who plays him in the other ones. I can't even remember, but that wild too.
But he
Mads Mikkelsen.
That's it,
which is also not a bad recasting. Anyway,
no, he was really good.
I have my other howling, or did you want to talk on that, Steve?
No, I just wanted to say with Fantastic Beasts, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this. Like, I don't know how much everybody that was developing those movies knew the full story that Joe wanted to flesh out and everything. Because just naming it Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, they pigeonholed themselves so much into so the rest of them became Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but The Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that should have been the subtitle or something over kind of I don't even know.
I think I always say they should have done the first one as a kind of a standalone, and then started the Dumbledore story off of that, using those same actors and stuff, but
that could have been
to
cool,
Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now there's an amusement park made after that second movie, so what the hell can I say?
And apparently I'm hearing the show is pretty cool inside
I hear it's really cool too.
The tent. But yeah, if it would have been Fantastic Beasts Where to Find Them, even if they did a sequel, it would have been a twofer, and Dumbledore is a cameo or a supporting character in the second one, and then the next time they did a movie, it's okay, we're still in a different time period, we're still going to use Newt, but now this is a Dumbledore titled. Anyway, what a mess. These are kind of minor gripes, I would say, but I don't know if they would have shifted things enough to come later. So the flying Voldemort, when he's chasing down Harry, that's different from the book, and I think what bothers me about it is it reminds me what I really don't like about their fight in Deathly Hallows Part 2.
The in-air fighting
when he's coming at him with Hagrid, and I'm like, oh, they trusted Hagrid in that moment, and I was like,
oh,
I feel bad that I'm that concerns me. Anyway, it worked out. He got him to safety for the greater good. He was willing to sacrifice everyone else. There's 2 lines that really bother me in this movie. When Lupin and Kingsley are talking about the last thing Dumbledore said to them, I just think it's cheesy. I just don't think it
feels very contrived.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole I don't think they set up the thing where it's you should have questions of the people you love so you can see if they've been imposters. There's that silly little leaflet that the Ministry sends out, but they do. I don't know why that.
My
bothers
note
me
says
so much.
Lupin has some Gambon energy in this in this scene, grabbing Harry, which kind of does happen in the book like that, but it's no, what was in my? It's they do not make Lupin likable after 3. He's just
they don't give him enough. He's plugged in.
Just an angry werewolf man.
I mean, and I get it to a degree that they were almost all just killed and stuff because of the leak, so he's panicking to a degree. It makes a lot more sense than Gambon freaking out after Harry's name came out of the goblet.
It does.
But it doesn't quite fit. Sorry, Mitch, go ahead.
Just the other line that I really hate is when Ron says something where he's like, Hermione, you're the best at spells. And
oh my gosh, I hate that.
Yeah, that's so cringy.
Because otherwise, I think Rupert handles the angst and the ridiculousness and the dynamics between the 3 of them fairly well, and that was it makes me want to vomit when I see it.
I hate that so much. Can I just say, she literally, the last time she had to do this was erasing her parents' memory, and you're you're the best at spells, do it. And you can see, which I think is a really great Emma Watson, you can see that moment, you feel it, she is torn about doing this because she literally just did this to her parents, which was traumatic. Yeah. And I'm you're the best. It's so creepy, dude.
Well, and it's with the stroking her cheek kind of thing too. It's wait a second, what's happening? But I think that was one thing, and I didn't like the way it came out in the end, but that was one of the biggest plot holes that I remember noticing as I'm reading the book, because in the book she says that she doesn't know how to do memory spells either, but we know that she had done one on her parents earlier, and so that's something that got through somehow. So it is a way to rewrite that moment, at least remove that plot hole, but it It's crazy.
When like Hannah was asking me when we watched this, like, oh, how does she go back? And like, it must have been a very specific memory incantation to be like, I'm going to pull this and give you a new memory for now, and you're going to be someone else. And then I can go back and reverse that. That is that's much more than just saying obliviate and screwing someone's memory. That is a pretty big time piece of magic that kind of gets glossed over. And I get you can't do everything in the book or the movie, but maybe that's something interesting that could be fleshed out a little bit better. We'll go to smaller gripes in just a minute, maybe some little things that they could fix, but let's go to the positives first and the pensive. And I will start this off because when we speak of the limited chemistry between Ron and Hermione, let's talk about one of the great film changes in the history of the medium and some good chemistry in the dance between Harry and Hermione in the tent.
What a beautiful display of friendship.
Friendship. Jamie,
I know I'm very alone on this island.
Men and women can't be friends.
They are friends, and they stay friends for the rest of their lives. Okay? Well, at least up to Cursed Child.
As far as we know.
No, they're friends there, but they do get into a fight. But like, I do think it's a great moment that actually, I really enjoy it, but I don't know if I fully believe it needed to be
Put
there.
A Nick Cave song on anything,
produced,
and I'll take it.
I don't know if it like did anything, because like it's not necessarily supposed to improve. Like she doesn't come around after that. It doesn't necessarily like demonstrate anything great to me. Like it really felt random to add that in, and I remember being super confused when I saw it, but also kind of enjoying it. But I think I enjoyed it because I shipped them and not because it was actually produce it. But it, like, filmmaking wise, it made me feel something. It was a good moment, and it also made me think that I'm a Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds fan, and so I listened to a few of his albums after this. To this day, I cannot remember a single other one. And I ran into a friend who...
It's a mood.
Yeah. I met a guy at my most recent job who was obsessed with them and like a real fan. And so I perked up when he started talking about them. And then I shut my mouth because I was like, you don't actually know anything. You can't admit to him that he's like he works for Glastonbury. Like he's very big in actually knowing musicians and whatnot. I was like, you cannot tell him that all you really know about this guy is you love his scene in Harry Potter. I think it came up one night at the pub at some point, and he was very pro. But I remember just saying, when you talk to a real fan, and it is just such a random. It's so
like
random.
I've always been an Iron and Wine fan. Sorry, this is kind of a off subject, but then there's that one of his songs is in Twilight, and so people all the time, I'd be like, "Oh, I love Iron and Wine." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love that song from Twilight," and I'm like, "Okay." That's one song. It is a really good song, but I also use it really not in good context, but for what it is. But anyway, I'm always like, oh yeah, you know that one song for Twilight. Yeah, you're not a fan.
I didn't even know who Iron One was until I was in my mid-20s, and even then, I wanted to be cool enough to like it. I'm sorry, it's just not my vibe.
I can happily say though that I remember basically nothing about the Twilight movies, and that makes me very happy. I think I managed to block out everything. I didn't ever see the last like two, I think. But yeah, we can do one of those where I watch it for the first time because I basically blocked it all. I think I only saw the first one, maybe, but it was bad.
I just remember the first one being knowing in the moment, like, wow, this is stupid.
We went and saw it, didn't we? I think Jamie saw it first, and it was that bad. She like took us to go see it. Just so we could all laugh at it together.
I was writing my blog.
I think we were doing that. I think we all went together, the three of us, and it was so. I remember
I was writing while we watched
I remember leaving that theater thinking like, "There's no way they're gonna make the rest of those books now." That movie was so bad, but it made enough money.
People loved it.
Well, and then the production value at least went up on the rest. Anyway, I'll limit our Twilight thoughts because I had thoughts. It took me a long time seeing New Moon because my high school girlfriend had such a big crush on Jacob. But I wanted to, moving off of the music, I think the music and the sound design in this, there's a couple really nice moments in this movie when they're being chased by the Snatchers, which I also kind of have an issue with. I think I don't love the way that all. Yeah,
at that point,
that's like even in the book, I'm like, it kind of makes no sense that if they could all come together, they wouldn't have just dipped out. But the music there, and then the very beginning of this movie, I think it feels epic. I think it gives you a very cinematic, excited, like it really puts you into this darker place, but in a good way. I think, yeah, there's a few moments the sound really stands out in this.
I have sound design with the locket, and that like really annoying screeching sound like under all the scenes where it's like affecting them, and especially and how it grows louder when like Ron's upset. It's so cool that they did it that way.
Christopher Nolan-esque.
Yeah, how else do you show how this locket, because even in the book you don't really, you're like, oh, once Hermione brings that up, how much the locket's affecting them and causing like this contention between them, but that sound design is so perfect for that. Anyway, sorry, I had to add that while you were on sound design.
You go on and give maybe what they got the most right. I think I know, Jamie, it's everything, and you've gone into some of it, but maybe let's pick out a few things that like really stand out.
Okay, I have both Polyjuice Potion scenes I think are so good. I think everyone turning into Harry. I think Daniel Radcliffe does such a good job portraying everyone. It's fun. And then I think the adults who play the kids in the Ministry, I think they do a really good job. One of my cry scenes is when that guy gets teary in the office looking at the pictures of Dumbledore. I think he does that better than Daniel Radcliffe. So I was like, oh, I really like that scene. I have sound design. The acting, I think Emma Watson, and I mean, I think they all do really well, but Emma Watson is so good in this movie, like so good compared to even like acting she's done later on. And I'm not criticizing her acting, but I just think like she's so subtle. Her energy is so different from the other movies where she's like up here. I feel like she was just given the direction like, hey, you're the calm, you're the reasoning, and I think she played that really well. And then the Three Brothers animation, that guy's name was Ben Hybon, who did the animation. I think it's so great. I have a picture of it on the wall. A drawing from it. It's just like at first when I saw it, I was like, oh no, this is going to take you out of it. But I think it was so well done with the voiceover and everything. And then the Love Goods, I think Xenophilius is great. And just like the funny moments, the twins, all that kind of stuff feels a little more natural in this movie to me.
We'll say I also had the Tale of Three Brothers sequence. I thought that was a really cool way to kind of like show the story and like a very different visual form of storytelling, which I think again fit the tone really well. I did put the dance scene. I liked the dance scene. I liked it tonally. What it did, I saw it as more of like Harry kind of going out of his way to try and cheer Hermione up, and that to me was an act of love, be it friendship or whatever Mitchell wants it to be, shipping wise.
He wasn't going to step in at that point and hurt his best friend. But
here's my problem with that, though.
It's like character development, which we aren't used to in these movies. And I thought it was a beautiful moment.
It was.
There's a few beautiful moments with them conversationally, and one with Harry and Ron at the beginning. I should say, I also really like that. There's a lot of exposition done in that scene where Harry's trying to leave and Ron talks to him. That is like so much more natural than in the other movies where it's just like blah, 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 blah. Like it's really nicely done and you feel like they're actually friends. I'm guessing this was probably filmed towards the end. But in the dance scene, can I just say Hermione's hair goes tucked and untucked behind her
That's
hair.
The first time I remember I see it every time because you told me about that 20 years ago.
I'm like, come on, script supervisor, tell them about the hair.
But no, there's just in that sense of like a lot of the lines being more natural at the beginning when Ron and Hermione both have the like always the tone of surprise kind of line that they give to each other. Mm-hmm. Like that worked really well. I was it could have come off very, very poor. I also put but with the dance scene. So my issue is that like, okay, if I want to cheer someone up, I cheer them up with something that they like. I don't know that we've ever like come to understand that Hermione likes dancing or anything, you know what I mean? And the only thing we know about Harry and dancing is that he's really bad at it. So it's kind of like, it's a little out of character in that sense, but I do think that as far as like, you know, trying to cheer up, having like a little moment together. And I mean, it has been said too by the filmmakers. I think that was kind of a bit of an homage, like here's a little something for the Harry and Hermione shippers, because that's all you're getting kind of thing, since we know at that point that
and it also makes sense for Harry and Hermione in the books. Maybe it doesn't make sense, but way more than the movies. You don't feel like there's no like friendship building. There aren't many friendship building moments in the books between them. So it's like, oh, they are really close. Yeah. Who knew?
And then the only other thing I had was, the opening scenes, which I think Mitch talked about, but like,
I was gonna say
setting the tone with Hermione wiping her parents' memory, and then the Dursleys setting off, like just those parts of like, these people are like turning their lives upside down because things are about to get serious, was really well done. I felt like, and the music there was really good that helped with that. And then just the action, like they did put, this movie has a lot of parts that are like slow and it's meant to feel kind of dragged out, like especially when they're staying in the tent and going through, you know, the countryside and all that. But they still did a really good job, I feel like, with keeping enough action there that it was an exciting movie, like the ministry scenes and escaping and from the Malfoys, all of that. It was action packed too. So those are my favorites.
Can I just add, sorry, I forgot to say about the whole beginning. I love the beginning of this movie. Besides the extreme close-up, I think they could have started on just a close-up instead of the extreme close-up. But I do love the beginning of this movie, like the whole, like them getting ready to leave, Hermione erasing the memories, the Malfoy Manor scene at the table, I think is so well done. It's pretty different from the book in some ways, but it feels like the book. And like they have, what's the guy's name? Who becomes minister? I keep thinking Pontius Pilate
Bias thickness.
because it was
Yeah.
Easter
I
yesterday.
feel like that could have been
Thickness.
explained better,
But
by the way, because he just shows up
it
and
could
he's
have been-
like,
Yeah,
"This
yeah,
guy's
but
the
he's
minister?"
not in the book. He's not in that scene in the book. He's talked about in the book.
Yeah.
But I get why they put him there. So when you see him later that he's minister, people are like, oh, snap. But I think that's done really well. And I love the like Malfoy, like, sir. Like, anyway,
looks
I
so
forgot to mention the beginning of this movie.
Lucius looks so bad.
But I love it.
He's just beat down, man. It works out.
What do you guys think of Malfoy Manor as, I think whenever a movie gets divided into, everyone's like, hey, when are they going to do that break? And I think this kind of, we all kind of figured this had to be it, but it's not as explosive. But then they kind of capitalize on it with the emotion afterwards, which the only time that I didn't cry this time, but I got really emotional and I would have cried at times is Dobby's death.
Yeah.
And I think there was so much more that like I wanted Harry to say, and there's so much
I
more
wanted them
that
to say
like
less.
I just think maybe it's because Dobby didn't get those other scenes in those other books. Like that friendship could have developed more, and Harry could have shown that appreciation in more ways. But yeah, how did you guys feel about the manor as the finale?
Do you guys remember before this came out, the big conversations like when are they going to split it? Like there were all these guesses and stuff.
Well, we were all worried it was going to be like a much bigger cliffhanger too, though, that it was going to be like right as an action scene began or something like that, because they want to like make sure everyone goes to the next movie. But I felt like they did find a good place for it, kind of like, hey, this is a pause in the story because of the tone shift with Dobby dying and everything. It was a good place to split it. And also, if you look at like the book itself, it's almost, what's it, 2/3 of the way through the book. So part 2, they actually are able to spend more time on the battle and those kinds of things as a result of that, which worked in their favor as well.
I think what's impressive about part 2, we'll talk about that, is it really goes, you have the quiet moment to begin, you have Gringotts, and then it's the Battle of Hogwarts, and of course there's moments where they can even out that pacing with things, and then it ends because you have the Prince's Tale, and then you even have Harry in the forest, and then you have Harry and Dumbledore. Like it does have the slow moments, but I think I actually don't dislike the pace, even though I get frustrated by how they handle some of it. But it's funny, the things I wanted them to give more time to in that movie, when really this one does a lot of like, it gets you really to the brink of where now you can open with an action sequence in the next one, and then that's it. You're headed to Hogsmeade. Let's go.
That's when I read the book too, like from the moment they leave Shell Cottage to go to Gringotts, like it's a roller coaster from there to the end. Like they're racing through Gringotts, they're racing they just have some pauses and things in there. So yeah, I thought it was a good place to cut it, because from there to the end of the story, it really it flows as one thing.
I have in my notes, this is the best ending to any of the movies. All the other movies end with this like cheesy moment of the trio, and someone says some cheesy line. Please don't do that for the series, because that's not how the books always end. I mean, it just is like, oh, Harry's going back to the Dursleys, like life moves on kind of a thing. And I like how this one ends in this sad moment. They either had, like, I was surprised they went as far as they did when I first saw it, but I'm glad they did. And I mean, a lot of this movie and in the book too is like wrapping up and like paying homage back to the earlier books, like Harry visiting his old room under the stairs and talking about, Hagrid bringing him on the bike and all this stuff. And then so ending with Dobby's death, which again, I feel like for book readers, we're more emotionally affected by that than probably moviegoers, because it's like, oh, this annoying guy is back. Because as a reader, for me personally, I don't know, you're like annoyed by Dobby, you hate him, and then you kind of grow to love him and then feel bad for him, really through like the lens of Hermione and people explaining like the role of House
Spew isn't in the earlier books, so you don't like get that whole thing.
But it's such a good emotional way to end it. And then with Voldemort breaking into Dumbledore's grave, that like just builds up the suspense of like, hey, these Hallows have been introduced, this Elder Wand, and we know Voldemort's been trying to figure out the wand thing, and so it for me it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, like, but it makes you excited what's going to happen next. in the next one. So I thought it was really well done.
I think that is a good point, because the first few movies, I don't want them to end the show to end on a sour note, the season end on a sour note. But Harry going back to the Dursleys after like book 1, it sucks, and book 2, it sucks, and then 3, that's when like
Really
things really
sucks.
start to ramp up, and he's going in. He has hope about going to the Burrow and going to the World Cup this time. And then 4, he's seen death, and I think that's when the war starts. That's when Harry has all of a sudden lost that innocence. And for the first 3.5 books, it's still like a boarding school. It's still a children's story. And so I think those endings don't need to be as like send you off into the sun, but that is more of a movie thing, right?
Doesn't
like
need a
the
cheesy
Hogwarts
line.
Express going the other, like leaving after 1 and stuff. Like I get how they bookended it, but no, I mean, yeah, it's them looking at some sun-swept sunset thing, or it's a freeze frame. And Jamie loves a freeze frame. Eddie, I'm gonna run.
There's a weird cut to black too. I was gonna say when they get into the Grimmauld Place after the Dumbledore ghost thing rushes at them. I remember there was that weird cut to black, and everyone was like, "Are they ending it here?" But they weren't ending it there. But sometimes an awkward cut to black, I kind of love that one. But sometimes I'm like, "Why are we cutting to black in the middle of this movie?" Or fading to black, I should say.
I think it can be used well, but seldom, which I don't think that one bothered me. But that actually helps lead into, I'd say for the rest of the pensive, if there's any other little tweaks or notes we have, let's finish those off as we look back at this movie. And then we can turn that into the Marauders map and look forward to how this will work as a season or half of a season of TV. But with Grimmauld Place, I always thought in the book where they decided was the safe place to be after Half-Blood Prince, I was like, well, it didn't always make sense to me that they could go back to Grimmauld Place after it was like safe but unsafe. And then for the fact that the Burrow becomes the headquarters of the Order, I'm like, the Burrow seems like the most obvious thing in the world to me.
Well, in the movies, they've been there. They know where the Burrow is.
They already burned it down once.
And I'm like, why didn't they put those protections in last year? And they're like, oh, they've thrown every protection out they can, so it wouldn't be worth it. And I'm like, what can Voldemort not get through with time and thought and like, and can plan it all out anyway? I think the protective force fields of safe places, because then we see in part 2 they put the dome around Hogwarts. Like if they were using similar magic to protect other places, like, well, clearly there's a way through. Like you can't just leave everyone in anyway. The safe places thing, a little inconsistent in the magic building of the world, but
there are no safe places.
A couple other small things.
But it also shows that, like, and they don't say this in the movie, but their naiveness as kids is like, okay, we only know so many places to go, so we're gonna go to this one place we know.
They had to go there and find the RAB too.
But the Order chose anyway. The radio broadcast is one of my favorite scenes in all of the books, and so I almost want them to have Ron's. I like how they did the voice over the montage. It was nice, but I want them to have like Ron searching for it. I want even maybe 2 episodes, which would be expanding, where we get to hear 1 episode and we're just having fun, and then there's another episode and that's when they say Voldemort afterwards, and that's when tricks everything into full gear. But I want to hear Fred and George, and I want to hear their dumb nicknames and calling them Rapier and Regulus and all that. At the beginning, the way that they're so disgusted by mating with muggles and they act like it's like bestiality, like I get what they're going for, but I'm like, Voldemort, your dad is a muggle. That's one thing I'll never get over. Like I get what J.K. Rowling was trying to do with it, but at the same time, like I get the whole purity thing, it makes sense, but I was like, how can they have such cognitive dissonance?
Why doesn't anyone bring this up? Hey, aren't you part muggle, my man? But I will say that part in the book too is more to sick Bellatrix on Tonks and Lupin, because it's more about the fact that they're related to someone who's banging a werewolf and that her sister is a traitor. So that's really what that is in that first chapter, is like, hey, if you want to prove yourself to me, because the Malfoys have kind of messed up and Bellatrix has kind of messed up by association, he's basically hinting like sick her on Tonks and Lupin, and we know how that turns out. So it's just, I feel like they should have just either left that out or done it in that way.
I like, some people have kind of become fascinated with the idea of the 3 sisters, Narcissa and Tonks' mom, whose name is Andromeda, and Bellatrix, and like that dynamic. And I actually do think that's quite interesting, and that's something where we could learn a little bit more about all 3 of them, and it would make the story more interesting. Obviously, we get that cut off, and it all harkens back to the delightful family tree.
I feel a spin-off show coming of them growing up together as sisters, so step by step mixed with Wednesday, something.
Someone made like a fan-made-ish one that it's not like It's without words. I think it's called The Noble House of Black on TikTok. And it's like, but it is a spin-off clever idea because they do have this lineage as being like, you talk about there's no nobility in the wizarding world, but you talk about these pure blood families that treat themselves as if they are the chosen families. Last couple things. Mundungus, very well cast. We don't get enough about him. Like, he doesn't really make sense. And it would be interesting more to see him make one other appearance and set him up and have him kind of built up through. But when I think of like grimy British people, I know a few more of them now. There's a lot of ways they could go that could be very different, but I thought he did a great job. And then lastly, why was Hermione wearing perfume? Like, is that just part of her routine? Come on, dog.
Because Ron's there and she's trying to.
Well, that leads into my other night. Hermione hugged Ron as he was coming back to the burrow, but he was still half Harry, and it just shows that her heart is torn.
No, she was worried about Ron. That's one of my cry moments.
My goodness. Did you guys have any other pensive random tweak
I
bits?
just had, you brought it up, them running through the forest. I get why they elongated that sequence of them like running from the snatchers and like the craziness of it, but it was like they got far enough away. And so in the book, Hermione does that in the tent, right? Like as soon as they show up, she like messes up Harry's face. Yeah. The fact that they have time to do that in that moment, I'm like, apparate. If there's a fire in our home, my children know to go across the street, catty corner to our friend's lawn. They know that. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, you guys needed a system. If something hits a fan, you all apparate to one place and meet up, or you go out on your own. Like, that frustrates me about the movie.
Well, and again, book thing here, sorry, is that because you never really understand that from the books that Hermione's the only one who's good at apparating. Ron doesn't pass his test, and Harry never actually gets around to taking his test. So they have to get to Hermione. So like they can't apparate individually. They have to get to her, which they still could have done. But it's again,
really, I didn't feel that from the book. I feel like now they can apparate. Maybe. They've been apparating from this place to that place. They have got to know.
But she's always the one who does it. They're always all holding on together, and she does it. Just
It seemed like it wasn't quite like the side-along thing Dumbledore was doing, but it was like she was almost guiding them.
Yeah, that might be.
Well, she's the only one that thought out this thing. Okay, well, she brought all the stuff.
She saved everybody's bacon several times. She saved their bacon.
Besides camping out, what's that place called with all the rocky rocks? I'm like, that looks like a comfortable place to pitch a tent. But you know what? No one's gonna look for you there.
Because of the magic, I'm like, well, I guess you don't actually have to deal with that unlevel ground. But I was like, that's uncomfortable. Come on.
Well, like when they land right on those rocks, I'm like, good thing you didn't land in a crack there between the rocks.
Break an ankle.
Like, now we have a broken ankle.
All right.
What else you got for pensive, Jamie?
Pensive.
That's all. I'm good.
Okay. I would I really need them to include Dumbledore's funeral in the next one. That was something that I feel like was really missing.
Well, that's in 6.
Well,
it could have been
one of those. It could have been in 6. It could have been. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that.
Or a flashback to it.
Yeah, but so yeah, either one, it needs to be in there somewhere. And then the other thing I had was I know you mentioned the Polyjuice Potion scenes. I really wish that they would do the other Polyjuice Potion scenes with Polyjuice Potion. So Godric's Hollow and the wedding. Because like the whole conversation with Muriel is completely different because she doesn't realize she's talking to Harry. She thinks it's a random Weasley cousin. And so she's just spouting off stuff, right? I don't know that it would go the same way if she knew it was Harry. Like in the movie, it's just him by himself. And then Godric Hollow is similar. Like the other people not noticing them, the snake being able to find them and everything is only because Harry responds to Parseltongue. Otherwise, she had no idea that was actually Harry. I say Nagini, who we think is Bathilda at the time. So I think those are two moments that they could really build on. And it is just, some of it is like even the apparition stuff, just like flesh it out a little bit, have a conversation so that we understand like what's happening and why. And then it works out better later. But those are really my only other ones.
Let's flip on to the map and how we're going forward to make sure that this is a great season or half a season. This movie did such a good job that it actually gives me a lot of hope in that even if they max out these seasons at 10 or 12 episodes, that they can still do a good job, because this movie did a pretty dang good job with 2.5 hours, which would mean that, let's say the whole thing is 5 hours. That's a 5-hour season. If they have twice as much time, it makes me think they could do Deathly Hallows justice. So I'm quite looking forward to this one, because I think that it could be the same amount of episodes and everything as the other longer books, but still be really good. But what are, I'll start with the key one, the things that need to be expanded, even from this movie, which we think adapted really well, or the things that they're able to expand because we have the backstory we may have skipped in the other ones. For me, it's Dumbledore. And I think that includes, I think I would want flashbacks, but I really want it spread throughout, the bits of Harry reading the book. And I don't know, obviously they're going to have to find a way to show us that. And then the conversation at the wedding. I need Dumbledore's DNA infused with this rising conflict with Hallows and Horcruxes. I love how much this focuses on the trio, but that needs to be like hanging, and then that pain and that loss needs to be hanging in the back of Harry's mind. And then that stings even more when Voldemort steals the wand. So yeah, let me know. I think we can kind of combine here. What is the key thing we can spend more time with? And then how many episodes do you think that's going to put us at? Even just for this film, if you think it can be done in 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever.
I mean, they make a good point, right? That they were able to do this in 2.5, which does give me hope. But I still, I mean, I know we were already talking about, hoping for a 7-7 split or something for by the time they get to the end of the series and everything. So my hope would be that they'd have even more time. But I think that they could do it in less if they need. It could be a 5-5 split or something like that. I agree on the Dumbledore piece, especially just when it comes to the Hallows and Horcruxes and everything, kind of playing those off of each other. So there's that dichotomy throughout. So you kind of get that payoff at the end. The other thing, though, is just this book, I feel like it was harder to express in the movies, but just like the sense of loss. Like once Dumbledore is gone, like Harry's it. Like there's just this sense of like there's nobody else, I mean, he had Sirius, he had Dumbledore, like and he's got the Order and these other people, but really like he's the only one who has all the pieces, and he doesn't actually even have all the pieces. Like there's still a lot to figure out. He's kind of got all these people depending on him, and he's constantly being reminded that he's the chosen one, and that Ron and Hermione are like, hey, where are we gonna go next? Like, aren't you supposed to know what to do? And he doesn't. And so just like that kind of like there's a bit of a meandering spirit to like all that time that they're out in the middle of nowhere. It's because like he doesn't know where to go or what to do, and they're kind of grasping at straws. I think that's a really important part of just understanding Harry and where he's at, and like that defines a lot of the season, and then it drives that latter half, especially because like once they're getting to Gringotts and then the Battle of Hogwarts, it's like they see the end. It is there. The end is in sight. And now it's just kind of like a sprint to actually get there and make it happen instead of, being lost and confused.
I think that's more because we need to feel that we don't feel like Harry's got everything he needs. Like he was not done learning from Dumbledore everything he needed. Also, I like at the beginning of this how he's like, why did I never learn any basics of healing magic? That seems like something we should know. But like we feel like Harry's not ready. But also, we need to really feel that Dumbledore said, do not tell or trust anybody else with the Horcrux information. Because another thing that they cut that I was actually okay with, but will probably serve well in the series, is Lupin trying to join the trio at one point.
Yeah.
And although
that
also
seems so awkward
we
in the
love
books.
Lupin. Yeah, it's painful when Harry rejects him, but we need to learn why. We need to make Harry feel that isolation, feel like he has to do it on his own. Because hindsight, Lupin was trustworthy, and it would be incredible if they had a grown wizard, but would he have actually helped them get to the Horcruxes sooner?
Who's an
We don't know.
expert in
I don't know, but
defensive
we
dark arts.
we almost need that urgency. And yeah, I think that's a good point, is Harry's unpreparedness, and that's why some of this feels so meandering, but in a good way, because we are getting that character development. And that's why I almost think that they made this one 2 parts because it's the finale, but I wouldn't mind if it's not the longest season. I think 4 and 5 almost warrant longer seasons than this one does. This one, the key is, where do we spend the time with the character development, and then how do they parse out the final battle over multiple episodes to actually reach a conclusion of the entire series? Because there's a lot of chances for, like, could they spend an hour in King's Cross, this and that? And so I think I wouldn't actually mind if this isn't
You can do your
that
Game
long,
of
if they
Thrones
hit what they hit.
formula where you have your massive battle as like with the penultimate episode, and then your last episode is actually just all the fallout, like they did with a lot
I
of
think they're going to be,
seasons. That could
because
work
in
well.
the middle of that battle, you have the Princess Tale, you have so much of the stuff. They're going to be tempted to draw that out for 4 or 5 episodes.
Well, and it's also like the battle in the book between Harry and Voldemort. It's like the centerpiece, but it isn't as big as everything else happening is.
Yeah.
Like you're cutting from more people battling and stuff like that. We don't need the spinning
I
apparating
was
fight.
well.
But
This is Never mind. Sorry,
No,
that's a
we want the
comment for
duel in
next
the
time.
Great Hall.
Yeah, so we want that moment, but it's not as
Yeah.
long. Like it's more about that he's been breaking down Voldemort horcrux by horcrux. Anyway,
And when he rubs that in his face, sorry, we're obviously
Yeah,
I,
this is
I
for
do
the
love that
next.
part in the movie where he's like,
but they
"Me
go
and you."
together. Yeah.
I mean, in the
Yeah.
next movie was like, "Me and you, Tom." Okay.
Go on, Jamie. Key
Sorry.
expansion.
I agree on the Dumbledore stuff. I also think it's such a big part of, I mean, it's a huge part of the books. The book is like Harry coming to terms that he did not know Dumbledore and then feeling betrayed by Dumbledore. And like Mitchell mentioned earlier, I just want more of like the Rita Skeeter book. And like two big lessons that come from this book is that like, you know, you don't know all of someone. Dumbledore is a very complicated person. He's done good, he's done bad, kind of a thing. And the thing with Rita Skeeter is like, sometimes the media is telling the truth, sometimes they're exaggerating, sometimes she's straight up lying, and like Harry trying to navigate that or not worry about navigating that. I want the side things. I think they need like Mitchell was talking about, like the radio show and like them running into Dean and Grip Hook, even though they don't talk to them, things like that. So you get what's going on in the rest of the world. I get why they pared that down for the movie, but I feel like that's something that needs to be in the show. So you kind of get a hint of what's going on and how it's affecting these other characters that we know.
And if we know Dean a little bit better from earlier in the story, I think it's interesting because we're later going to see what's been going on with Dumbledore's army, and it's going to be so cool to be like, oh, Dean couldn't be there because of this mystery and the suspicion, this thing we don't know. And then just to glimpse him, like you got to remember the hope that kind of sparks in you and the connection that you feel, because we also know he's with Ted Tonks that die. Like if we would have met Ted earlier in the movie, like that, and also it feels like so much time has passed, and I think they do a good job of that in the movie, and the book and the series will have the chance to even more so give an emphasis on meeting him and then seeing him die and caring, like all in that time.
And the little hints of what's going on at Hogwarts and stuff like that, because we at this point we still care about Hogwarts. We're just, this is our first time away, you know. And then sorry, this isn't so much for this movie because I actually think they do a really good job in the when they're killing the Horcrux, the image of like Harry and Ron and all Ron's insecurities. And I think, you know, Rupert does a really good job portraying like why he leaves, but I feel like that needs to be built up throughout the series, is like Ron's insecurities just a little bit more so that we can understand why he storms off and leaves. Creature, his redemption, like just understanding that more, and the fact that like he takes care of them for a while after this all happens. And I always feel bad in the book that they just leave him waiting there with the dinner and they don't come back from the ministry.
You never know what happened to him. Yep,
agreed.
And then the Godric's Hollow. I love that scene in this movie. I think Emma Watson does such a good job when they're like at the graves and all that stuff. But just more about Bathilda Bagshot. This is the first time we hear about her in the movie. You know, like we know who she is in the books, at least that she's an author, and like we recognize her name. And so it's exciting that like, oh, this person who wrote a history of magic is like here, you know, kind of stuff.
Rita's books comes into play there, right? Because that's what they used to kind of learn more about her, and that she was the Dumbledore's neighbor, that kind of stuff too. So,
and I just always joke about this when they're battling in that scene and they roll into the neighbor's house. This is such like an American thing. I didn't realize that she didn't live in like a standalone house. I'm like, why is there a nursery in her house? Wait, is this supposed to be like Harry Potter baby nursery? I'm like, what the hell is happening here? And then like as I got older, it was like, oh, duh, that's just like the neighbor's house. But good thing that baby wasn't in his crib, and we're like, what the hell?
It is a jarring, and I'm sure it was meant to be, but yeah,
it's
that's
like,
the thing.
What's going on
here? They call them if it's only on one side, it's a semi-detached house, and if that's how it is on both sides, like we'd call it duplex, they'd still call it a semi-detached. And then, but generally, it would be called a house, and you could, like where it'd be a townhouse in the U.S. Here, it is such a standard to be attached on both sides to other homes.
And those people didn't smell. That there's a rotting corpse. But then
walls are thick, you know.
And some things I think you guys have already hit, but like more backstory on the Deathly Hallows and like the importance of Dumbledore going after them, Voldemort, like just like kind of the idea of like just touching on that is the name of the movie. But I think they do okay. More magic. There's not a lot of magic in this movie outside of like apparating and stuff like that. I mean, there are like fights. I don't know, but.
You mean like those magical moments that the others had? Yeah, I feel you. They didn't really have that
like just light a fire while you're camping.
It was magical when like weird silvery ghost Hermione and Harry made out and they were naked, and that was jarring.
I was surprised we didn't get to that one yet, but
yeah, can't watch
their nude scene.
That's what's going on in Ron's head, I guess. And then
True.
I don't know. I have like the horcruxes. I just need more emphasis. Like from the time we learn about the horcruxes on, I don't know. It's missing too much from the movie, but I just really want that developed. Like this, why are we doing this? And the fact that like we start this book with Harry knowing shit about what to do about the horcruxes. He has nothing, which Ron does yell at him about, but he's like, why the hell did Dumbledore tell you any of this? And I just want Harry to be like, I don't know. Like, yeah, he should
Well,
have
and
told
that's not
me more about
expressed
this.
well, right? That's part of why he's pissed at Dumbledore, is because he's like, look at the situation you left me, and I've got these people depending on me, and like, I don't know, Jack, like, what the heck were you thinking? So there's definitely some anger there. But I do, so on the Hallows, tell me if I remember this right, but like in the books, isn't it that Voldemort doesn't actually know about the Hallows as Hallows? He only knows about the wand, right? He just knows the Death Stick and the Elder Wand. And like,
No, I think he does put together because the Deathly Hallows is almost like this little cult. Like Lovegood is like, oh yeah, if you've known about this symbol and stuff. So I think that Dumbledore is educated on the
I should go
Peveril
reread.
connection.
I
Well,
think
Dumbledore is, but
I
not
can't remember. I
Voldemort.
just know. Yeah, I don't
I
think
think he would have heard.
He's only interested in
I
the
don't
death,
know. I think
the wand. I think, from what I remember, I don't think
the
he
one.
even
I
like
think he.
ever bothers
Yeah.
to learn about the others.
He doesn't think the three of them together pose a real threat. I just think we don't know for a fact he knows what the three things are, but I thought he did.
Yeah, he doesn't really. I don't think he thinks of them as the Deathly Hallows. I'm sure he's heard about each of them in some sort of way, but he's most concerned about the wand because that's the most powerful thing, which reflects the brother and that he wanted the most powerful thing, and then I got him killed.
Okay, so actually, I think this is a pretty easy one this time around, and it's also good because I have a hard out in a few minutes here. But the Golden Snitch, the most important thing to get right in this movie or in this series, I think it's almost it's telling that we like this movie so much because I think that says that they got right a lot of the things that they needed to get right. You needed to stay entertained and well paced through the camping elements, and then you have to have these other set pieces make it feel invigorating because we know this is the penultimate movie, and in this case the penultimate half season that is going to lead to the conclusion of everything. Like the series should have already be at maximum pace and capacity and capability. Like Jamie said, these are the best acting for these. So we're hoping the young actors, maybe that's the Golden Snitch years. Can the performances peak here as we literally are building into the crescendo of the entire series? But yeah, the movie did so good that Golden Snitch wise, I think the thing that they have to get right is do what the movie did. Get us so excited for the end of this, have the best performances, and also nail not being at Hogwarts. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I have for the Golden Snitch that the war going on must feel real. It's not about school anymore. It's not even just about Voldemort. It's about surviving, fighting this battle, figuring it out, and just trying to build on that morally gray area and figuring out like the balance between the hope and the hopelessness. Like, where are we at? And coming to a head with like the battles between the trio and all this kind of stuff. But it has to be like this balance between all these different things going on, but just feeling that weight on Harry because he doesn't yet know fully that he has to like basically sacrifice himself, but he is coming to terms with like, I have to give up everything in my life and just find these horcruxes and get this done.
I have nothing to add. That was perfect. Yeah, all the things Jamie just said.
Can I give you guys my cry list too?
Oh yes, please.
This is the most important thing. Yes, please do.
These are all the moments I cried watching this movie. When Harry calls out for Ginny when they're about to apparate out of the wedding. I don't know why that was like the first time I actually felt that. Like, I just thought that was really well done. Hermione having to erase her parents' memory. And then I did cry again when Ron makes her erase other people's memories. Like, dude, you're the best at spells. Harry has red cord, and I just mentioned that one when he's going through the drawers and he sees Dumbledore and he sees like the list of all the people that they're going after. I feel bad for Mrs. Cattermole and that whole thing. And then when she kisses Ron, I just think it's funny. The graveyard scene when Hermione leans her head on Harry and she has to like whisper to him that someone's watching and like break the moment for him. I feel so like it just breaks my heart that Harry like finally gets to see his parents' grave and then Snake Lady ruins it. The tales of the three brothers, the whole thing. Luna just missing, and then Xenophilius is what's that actor's name? I love that guy. Is he another Rafe? Is his name Rafe? Anyway, I love that guy. Remember, he was in Notting Hill, and now he's in House of the Dragons. He does such a good job at that scene, being like, they took my Luna, and like, that's also something I wish they would have done better. Because in
Rhys
the book, like,
Ifans is really bothering me.
When how Harry makes sure like the Death Eaters see him and all that stuff for him and Ron's all pissed at him, but Harry's like, no, I totally get why he did that. I love that part of the book. Anyway, Dobby's death, of course, Hermione being tortured, I cried, and then Harry like burying Dobby and all that stuff. Anyway, that's my cry.
You're making me
I get
feel
very
like
emotional.
I'm gonna have to wait till my child's older than 3 to watch this. Gosh. Jamie, also Rhys Ifans is in your favorite Spider-Man movie, The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, the movie I saw one time. It's awful. No offense.
They have
You
great
make up for
chemistry,
it later.
but otherwise, yeah.
Andrew.
It's great. That's Deathly Hallows Part 1. So obviously we're already jonesing to talk about Episode 2. Next week on the HPTV podcast, we will be covering Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. We will be concluding our movie run, and yeah, no need to wait in between. And after that, we get to have a final quiz, and I have some good ideas to make it a good one. And we've had a couple listeners send us their scores, and they were very similar to ours, so we're not smart. That's what I've decided.
Just
anyway,
as smart as the listeners. What?
If you want to hang out with us or communicate with us, you can email us at hptvpodcast@gmail.com. And then on all socials, we are HPTVPod. I have personally not been posting to TikTok or Instagram as much as normal. And I have a couple of fun little bits where you record it as well that we want to do. So we'll be a little bit more buzzing as we finish our movie run here. So please join us on the socials as well. Did you guys have any parting thoughts?
Nope.
Jamie,
Great
send us
movie.
away.
Peace out, snitches.